A warning to all our viewers. What you're about to watch is a true story. The events depicted in this video may be disturbing or unsettling. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Coming up, we're looking back at one of the most horrific murder cases in East Tennessee history. 18 years ago, we first heard the names Channon Christian and Chris Newsom. Since their brutal deaths, their families have shared their stories, so they'll never be forgotten. Today, we're looking back at the crimes that impacted these two families and what they did to help future crime victims and protect other families from similar pain. Hello everyone, I'm Brittany Bailey. It is one of the most shocking and horrifying murder cases to ever happen in East Tennessee, one that took two young lives full of promise and put their families through 8 criminal trials. The tragic murders shocked the community and the families of these two young victims. 21-year-old Channon Christian attended the University of Tennessee. Her boyfriend, Chris Newsom, was a 23-year-old former Halls High School baseball standout. Armed men carjacked and killed them just a few days into the new year of 2007. 2 young lives were lost and 2 families were forever changed.
I don't want to die. 4 words, spoken in a house of horrors to people who felt nothing. 4 words that hung in the air like smoke and disappeared into silence. Nobody flinched. Nobody hesitated. Nobody stopped. She was still breathing when they put her in the garbage can. Let that sink in for a moment. A 21-year-old woman, honor student, daughter, girlfriend, someone with a future so bright it could blind you, was conscious, alive, and aware of every single second as darkness closed in around her. Not a quick death. Not merciful. They made sure of that. The garbage can sat in the kitchen like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. And while she fought for every breath inside those trash bags, her killers walked around that house, eating, laughing, wearing her boyfriend's shoes. Somewhere across the city, and her parents were staring at a phone that wouldn't ring. They didn't know yet. They couldn't have imagined. Because things like this don't happen to kids like Channon and Chris. They were the kind of young couple that made you believe in love, the type you'd see in a parking lot sharing a quick embrace on a Saturday night and think, yeah, the world isn't so bad after all. That was the last image anyone had of them together, laughing, holding each other, completely unaware that 5 predators were watching from the shadows, already choosing them. It took 1 parking lot, 1 carjacking, 5 minutes. And then they were gone, swallowed into a nightmare that would last 48 hours and leave an entire nation questioning how deep human evil could actually go. What happened inside that house on Chipman Street was so savage, so calculated, so deliberately cruel that even veteran homicide detectives, people who had seen the absolute worst humanity had to offer, broke down trying to describe it in court. One prosecutor fainted during the autopsy presentation.
In speaking about gut-wrenching terms, we know colleagues who really had to pull away from journalism because of this case, or their lives took a different turn, in part because of this case. It was that impactful, specifically the details that you listened to in court and that we dealt with on a daily basis.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was here the first time covering some of the trials, I sort of stepped into a role because one of our colleagues needed to step away from it. And I think, again, anybody who's covered this, as you said, just remembers those details. There were pictures shown, there were details mentioned in testimony that we'll never forget.
She never returned to that courtroom. This case would not end with the arrests. It would not end with the convictions. It would rage on for 12 years and 8 separate trials, twisting through corruption, addiction, and a justice system that failed these two families in ways almost too painful to recount. 12 years of sitting in courtrooms, 12 years of reliving it. 12 years before every single one of those 5 killers was finally, permanently put behind bars. What you are about to hear is not easy. It was not easy to research. It was not easy to write. The details of this case are graphic, are deeply disturbing, and at times, almost unbearable. If you are sensitive to content involving extreme violence or sexual assault, please take a moment to decide if you want to continue. We will not be holding anything back, because Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom deserve for the world to know exactly what was done to them, and exactly how hard their families fought to make it mean something. If you are new here, welcome to The Killing Pattern. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you never miss a case. Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are watching from. This community spans the globe, and every single one of you makes this work possible. Now, let's go back to Knoxville, Tennessee, January 6th, 2007. The night before that railroad worker made his discovery. Channon Gail Christian was born April 29th, 1985, in Nacogdoches, Texas. Her family lived in Louisiana before moving to Knoxville in 1997. She graduated from Farragut High School in 2003, and by January 2007 was a University of Tennessee senior majoring in sociology. 4 months from finishing her degree, set for December 2007. Her plan was to work with underserved communities. She competed in golf and attended West Park Baptist Church. Her father Gary called her bold and happy. Her mother Dina described her as someone who always kept her word. That matters. Hugh Christopher Newsom Jr., Chris, was born September 21st, 1983, in Knoxville. He played baseball for the Halls High School Red Devils, wore number 14, graduated in 2002, and trained at Pellissippi State Technical Community College before building a career as a finish carpenter. Crown molding, or trim work. His craftsmanship is still in homes across Knox County today. His father, Hugh Sr., mentioned it in courtrooms more than once. Outside of work, Chris loved fishing, the outdoors, golf, and Notre Dame football. The kind of person who showed up when he said he would. He and Channon had been together about 2 months. On January 6th, 2007, they had dinner at a local Knoxville restaurant. After that, the plan was to stop at the Washington Ridge Apartments on Washington Pike, where Channon's best friend, Kara Sowards, lived, then continue to a party in the Halls community. A normal Saturday. They did not make it to the party. While Channon and Chris finished dinner, something had been building on Chipman Street for weeks. Lemaricus Davidson, street name Slim, was 25, a Memphis native born June 13, 1981, and his mother was addicted to crack cocaine. A foster family named the Rudds took him in at 16 and never abandoned him. They were still visiting him in prison years after his conviction. Prosecutor Takesha Fitzgerald told the jury he had been given real chances and chosen not to take them. He served 5 years for carjacking and aggravated robbery, was released in August 2006, and moved into a rental house at 2316 Chipman Street, where he sold drugs and avoided his parole officer. By January 6th, he had no job, no vehicle, and had not paid rent. His girlfriend Daphne Sutton had moved out after a Christmas dispute. He owed money to a woman named Ethel Lynn Freeman for used furniture, money he did not have, and had promised her payment that very Saturday night. In December 2006, Davidson's half-brother, Letalvis Cobbins, 24, on prior robbery conviction in New York, arrived from Lebanon, Kentucky, with associate George Thomas, 24, street name Detroit, who had a felony record. Thomas's girlfriend, Vanessa Coleman, 18, came with them, driven by Stacy Lawson. None had jobs or vehicles. Witnesses told investigators they observed an assault rifle and 2 revolvers inside the house. The 5th person was nearby. Eric Dwayne Boyd, 34, born February 18, 1972, met Davidson in a West Tennessee prison. Both were out and living in Knoxville by early 2007. Boyd's record stretched to 1994, when he robbed 9 Knox County businesses over 2.5 months: a Walgreens, a Hardee's twice, a Pizza Hut, a Burger King, a liquor store, an adult bookstore, and a convenience store where he fired shots toward a clerk while fleeing. One detail ties directly to what happened. So Ethel Lynn Freeman, the woman Davidson owed money, lived at the Washington Ridge Apartments on Washington Pike. Davidson had helped her move in during December 2006. He knew that parking lot. On January 6th, Davidson, Cobbins, and Boyd drove toward North Knoxville. Multiple trial testimonies confirmed the purpose was robbery. They were not looking for anyone specific, just an opportunity. Around 9 p.m., they pulled into the Washington Ridge Apartments. Security cameras at Washington Ridge captured it. Channon was in the driver's seat of her silver 2005 Toyota 4Runner. Chris stood at the open driver's side door. Witnesses described them embracing. Both were approached at gunpoint, forced into the back seat with hands bound. Davidson took the wheel. Cobbins followed in a separate vehicle. At 8:47 p.m., so Chris had withdrawn $100 from a Hall's ATM. Before going to Washington Ridge, he dropped his friend Josh Anderson at the party, saying they would arrive after eating. That was the last contact. By 11 p.m., Josh returned to Washington Ridge and found Chris's truck still there. No 4Runner, no trace of either of them. The 3-mile drive to 2316 Chipman Street took minutes. George Thomas and Vanessa Coleman were already inside when Davidson arrived with both captives. What followed was reconstructed across 8 trials through forensic evidence, medical testimony, and witness accounts. Christopher Newsom was separated from Channon immediately. Medical examiner Dr. Darinka Mileusnich-Polchan testified that forensic evidence confirmed Chris was assaulted inside the house approximately 1 to 2 hours before being taken outside. He was bound, hands behind his back, ankles with a belt, a sock in his mouth, a sweatshirt tied over his head. He could not see. He could not call out. In the early hours of January 7th, Chris was forced to walk to railroad tracks behind the property, barefoot in January temperatures. George Thomas testified at the 2019 Boyd trial that he and Boyd walked Newsom to those tracks, and Boyd fired the fatal shots. Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals records reflect forensic analysis indicating multiple individuals discharged weapons. Chris was shot 3 times, neck, back, and at close range to the head. His body was doused with gasoline and set on fire, a deliberate effort to eliminate forensic evidence. When William Powell found the remains at 12:24 p.m., identification required dental records. Christopher Newsom, age 23. Back at the house, Channon was held in the north bedroom. TBI analysts directly connected Davidson and Cobbins to the assault against her. Bleach was forced into her mouth and applied to her body to eliminate biological evidence. It failed. Davidson's palm prints were on multiple trash bags, and his fingerprints on a box of garbage bags in the kitchen. Channon was placed alive inside a residential garbage can, bound and wrapped in 5 large trash bags. Dr. Mileusnich-Polchan testified she was alive when placed inside. Cause of death: asphyxiation. So a time of death fell between the afternoon of January 7th and January 8th, at minimum 12 hours after Christopher was killed. Court records from the Davidson appeal note that during her captivity, Channon asked Davidson whether she was going to die. Davidson showed no concern. Drug customer Darren Williams came to buy cocaine and found Davidson circling the neighborhood in the 4Runner. On a second visit, Davidson mentioned casually that a woman's body had been found near the tracks. No urgency, no alarm. The following day, he walked into a Knoxville Pizza Hut and committed an armed robbery, later pleading guilty and receiving 8 years alongside his death sentence. By Sunday morning, both families understood something was wrong. Dina Christian called the Newsoms when Channon did not come home, but neither family had heard from their children. Friends confirmed the couple never arrived at the party. The families contacted Knoxville police and were told the 24-hour waiting period applied for missing adults. Officers suggested the couple might have stayed somewhere together. The families did not wait. Gary and Dina Christian contacted Channon's cell carrier directly and obtained a tower ping near Cherry Street, North Knoxville. Reporter Jamie Satterfield of the Knoxville News-Sentinel, who covered this case from beginning through the 2019 verdict, later noted that Cherry Street was not a neighborhood someone ended up in accidentally. In the early hours of January 8th, Gary Christian found Channon's forerunner at Chipman Street and Glider Avenue, 2 blocks from Davidson's house. Every detail was wrong. The front seats were pushed all the way back. Channon stood 5 feet 2 and could not have driven from that position. Clothing, her overnight bag, phone charger, and photographs were gone. Window stickers had been peeled off. A pack of Newport cigarettes sat on the dashboard. Neither smoked. Evidence technician Dan Crenshaw of the Knoxville Police Forensic Unit lifted a fingerprint from a bank envelope inside the forerunner. It matched Lemaricus Davidson, convicted felon, on parole, registered address, 2316 Chipman Street, 2 blocks away. Police arrived with a search warrant January 9th at 4:15 p.m. The house was empty, but investigators found Channon's gray purse, her iPod engraved Channon Christian, Mom and Dad, we love you, 2 of Chris's baseball caps, his driver's license, shell casings matching railroad track ammunition, and photographs torn and partially burned. In the kitchen, Channon Christian inside a garbage can. I joined the manhunt. Investigators traced calls between Boyd and Davidson. Under pressure, Boyd led police to Davidson hiding at 1800 Reynolds Street. Recovered: Christopher Newsom's Nike Shox shoes and a .22 caliber high-standard revolver. Davidson gave investigators more than 5 contradictory accounts. Physical evidence contradicted every version. The same day, Cobbins, Thomas, and Coleman were arrested in Lebanon, Kentucky, Coleman's hometown, at a house belonging to Natasha Hayes. A woman named Jody Long had driven them there from Knoxville in exchange for drugs. Recovered: a .22 caliber Clerk revolver, victims' belongings, and a computer used to monitor news coverage. Boyd was taken into federal custody separately. January 31st, 2007, a 46-count indictment against Davidson, Cobbins, Thomas, and Coleman. All 5 in custody within days of the murders. 5 arrests, 46 counts. What followed was 12 years, 8 trials, and a revelation about the presiding judge that nearly dismantled everything. Eric Boyd went first. Federal court, accessory after the fact, failing to report a fugitive. Convicted April 16, 2008. 18 years. The families called it insufficient from day one. Letalvis Cobbins stood trial in August 2009 before a Davidson County jury bust from Nashville. TBI analysts had recovered Cobbins' DNA from Channon Christian. Cobbins testified in his own defense. Jurors rejected his account. Guilty August 25, 2009. First-degree murder of Channon Christian. Facilitation of Newsom's murder. Life without parole. Aunt Lemaricus Davidson went to trial October 2009. Forensic evidence, witness accounts, and Davidson's own 5 contradictory statements drove the prosecution. The jury returned guilty verdicts, including 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. At sentencing, Baumgartner told Davidson this was one of the most incredibly outrageous, cruel, and inhumane cases this court has ever seen, and that there really is no sentence great enough to punish you. Death penalty plus 80 consecutive years. Davidson became the 90th person on Tennessee's death row, one of only 7 with 2 death sentences simultaneously. George Thomas, 38 counts, life without parole. Vanessa Coleman, tried May 2010. The prosecution introduced her diary, handwriting verified by a forensic examiner. See entries from the days after the murders, described the period as fun and one hell of an adventure. Coleman claimed coercion. The jury convicted her on 17 facilitation counts, 53 years. By mid-2010, all 5 were behind bars. Then the case fell apart. Judge Richard Baumgartner had presided over all 4 state trials. The TBI found that during his final 2 years on the bench, the exact period of the Christian Newsom proceedings, he had been a functioning drug addict. His dependency began with painkillers prescribed for pancreatitis from chronic alcoholism. When prescriptions ran dry, he turned to Christopher Lee Gibson, a convicted felon whose probation appeared in his own court. Then to Dina Castleman, a drug court graduate who provided hydrocodone and roxycodone at $250 to $300 2 to 3 times weekly. The TBI found he was taking up to 30 pills a day. Castleman also had sexual contact with him in his chambers during court recesses. During Coleman's 2010 trial, Baumgartner stumbled visibly reading the verdict form aloud. Baumgartner resigned March 2011, pled guilty to official misconduct, was disbarred September 2011, and in November 2012 was convicted federally on 5 counts of misprision of a felony. 6 months in federal prison. He died January 23, 2018. December 1, 2011. Judge John Kerry Blackwood granted new trials to all 4 state defendants. Gary Christian. We were told not to cry by a judge who was on more narcotics than an elephant should be able to stand. Dina. We wasted 4 years. The Tennessee Supreme Court ruled impairment had to be shown to have directly affected proceedings. Retrials for Davidson and Cobbins denied. Convictions stood. Thomas and Coleman received retrials. Coleman reconvicted November 2012, sentenced to 35 years. Thomas reconvicted, sentenced later, reduced to 50 years after cooperating in a future proceeding. December 2020. Parole board voted 7-0 against Coleman's release, imposing a 10-year hold. At that hearing, she claimed she had seen or heard nothing. Hugh Newsom told the board her diary said otherwise. One person still had not faced state murder charges. Subscribe to the killing pattern and turn on notifications. From the day Boyd received 18 years, the Newsom family never changed their position. Mary Newsom told every reporter and investigator who would listen, "I've always had a mother's instinct that he was the one who murdered my son." She and Hugh appeared in Knoxville courtrooms over 400 times. They tracked the case. They worked prosecutors. They refused to let it close. An outside voice contributed. Kelvin Cowens served alongside Davidson in a West Tennessee prison between 2003 and 2004. After release, he went straight, watched the case unfold, and met with the Newsom family. He wrote a book, The Case Against Eric Boyd, arguing from first-hand experience that Boyd's role could not have been limited to what the federal charges described. Davidson's thinking, he told media, had always been darker than other inmates. In March 2018, 11 years after the murders, a Knox County grand jury indicted Boyd on 36 state charges, including first-degree murder of both victims. Trial opened August 6, 2019, before Judge Bob McGee. Prosecutors, Takesha Fitzgerald and Phil Morton. Defense attorney Clinton Frazier. Kara Hodge, formerly Kara Sowards, Channon's closest friend, opened testimony, establishing the January 6th timeline and the moment contact with the couple stopped. The central testimony came from George Thomas, testifying under a cooperation agreement. Thomas told the jury he and Boyd walked Newsom from Chipman Street to the railroad tracks. He testified Boyd fired the fatal shots. When Boyd returned to the house, he told Davidson 4 words. "That's taken care of." Frazier attacked Thomas directly. His accounts had varied across prior proceedings, and he had personal incentive to reduce his own culpability. Frazier told the jury, "These are the acts of Lemaricus Davidson, Letalvis Cobbins, Vanessa Coleman, and George Thomas." No fingerprints, no DNA placed Boyd at either scene. Corroboration: Adrienne Mathis, Boyd's cousin, testified she lent Boyd her white Pontiac Sunbird around the time of the murders. Neighbor Xavier Jenkins identified the Sunbird from a lineup as a second vehicle at Chipman Street on the night of January 6th, placing Boyd's car at the scene. Ballistics confirmed 2 bullets from Newsom's body were .22 long rifle rounds from the same weapon. The fire destroyed much of the forensic record, but not the bullets already inside his body. Boyd did not testify. August 13th, 2019, a 1 day of deliberations. Jury returned at 2 p.m., guilty on all 36 counts. Audible gasps when the foreman read the first count aloud. Boyd told Judge McGee he was not guilty and would appeal. As officers moved him out, he turned to both families. "I'll be out." Sentencing September 18th, 2019. Both families present. Mary Newsom said Boyd should never see the outside of a prison. Dina Christian told him, "You are pure evil." Gary Christian told the judge, "Eric Boyd has absolutely no positive value in our society." District Attorney Charm Allen called it among the most powerful victim impact statements she had witnessed. Judge Bob McGee sentenced Eric Boyd to 2 consecutive life sentences, plus 90 years. 12 years. 7 months. 7 days after that Saturday in January 2007. Every person responsible for the deaths of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom was in prison for the rest of their lives. Hugh Newsom outside the courthouse. "We said we would not stop until Eric Boyd was prosecuted. There were times we wanted to give up. He will never be back on the streets of Knoxville." In June 2014, Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam signed 2 laws named directly after the victims. The Christopher Newsom Act eliminated the 13th juror rule, the requirement that a judge independently validate a unanimous verdict. That provision was the exact mechanism Blackwood used to overturn 4 convictions after Baumgartner's misconduct surfaced. Under the new law, a unanimous verdict stands. Had it existed during the original trials, the families would never have returned to court. The Channon Christian Act restricts what defense attorneys may introduce about victims during proceedings. Defense teams attempted to bring background information about Channon that had no bearing on the charges. The law now requires any such information to be directly relevant. Both laws protect every crime victim in Tennessee. The house at 2316 Chipman Street was purchased by Waste Connections, demolished in October 2008, and replaced with a memorial. The Channon Gale Christian Foundation holds an annual golf tournament, funding a scholarship for a Farragut High School senior at the University of Tennessee. The Chris Newsom Memorial Foundation runs an annual baseball tournament at Halls Community Park. As of 2025, 43 scholarships funded. The Shepherd's Motorcycle Club holds annual rides in Channon's memory. Gary Christian takes photographs every morning when the sun rises. He talks to her. Hugh Newsom keeps a framed photo of Chris and Channon on the dresser in his son's room. After the murders, white supremacist groups tried to use the case as a platform. Fewer than 30 demonstrators gathered in Knoxville on May 27, 2007. Police Chief Sterling Owen IV stated, "We have no evidence to support the notion that this was a race-based crime. We see this as a cold-blooded murder." Reverend Ezra Mays, president of the Knoxville NAACP chapter, said, "It's not a black and white issue. It's a right and wrong issue." Gary Christian addressed those exploiting his daughter's death. "Ain't about you." And current status as of early 2026. Lemaricus Davidson is on death row at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, one of only 7 Tennessee inmates with 2 death sentences. In June 2025, he sought a sentence reduction. In December 2025, Senior Knox County Judge Don Ash denied 4 of his requests. Gary Christian. It's supposed to be through. Done. Give him a date. Letalvis Cobbins. Life without parole at Riverbend. George Thomas. 50 years. Charles Bass Correctional Complex, Nashville. Vanessa Coleman. 35 years. Parole denied 2020. Next eligibility 2030. Eric Boyd. 2 consecutive life sentences plus 90 years. Motion for new trial denied. Channon Christian would have turned 40 in April 2025. Christopher Newsom would have been 41. His craftsmanship is still in Knox County homes. Her foundation still awards scholarships. And their names are in Tennessee law. Their families are still showing up. Gary Christian after the Boyd verdict. We'll never get justice. But this gets us closer. 2 laws protect strangers. They will never meet. 43 students went to college in Chris Newsom's name. A memorial stands where that house once did. 5 people will never walk free again. If you enjoyed this content, become part of our community by subscribing and turning on notifications. Every subscriber helps us continue creating the stories we are passionate about sharing.